Okay, thanks. Good evening and welcome to everybody that's made it to tonight's tasking meeting. Thanks very much. We're at the Elim Church in Selly Oak in the heart of Bournebrook. This is going to be the first of a monthly live tasking meeting. So as well as members of the audience that we've got here tonight, this has been streamed online, and we plan to do that every month now for the next 12 months. So a big welcome to our online audience as well. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sergeant Simon Williams, and I'm the local Sergeant for Selly Oak neighbourhood team. With me tonight I have...
I'm Bridget Jones, I'm a local councillor for Selly Oak Ward.
And also...
I'm PCSO Richards. I've covered mainly Selly Park, but also the whole ward of Selly Oak.
Also with us this evening in the audience, you'll notice the young lady over there, Vicky Cheplack. Vicky works for our Birmingham South partnership team, and she'll be acting as facilitator tonight. So what's the role of facilitator? Well, basically Vicky will be putting online questions to the panel at the front of the room, and she'll also be supporting us in answering any questions that we might not be able to answer. She'll be updating our social media as we go along, so she'll be live tweeting as we go with the updates that we'll provide you with about what's going on in your local community around crime and antisocial behaviour. A bit of housekeeping, I suppose, to start with. It's very, this is meant to be like an ordinary tasking meeting, except I've got to ask you, and it's all basic stuff, if you've got any questions or comments when we come to that part of the agenda, as normal, just keep your questions, if you can, and comments to the point, and nice and short for us. I'll probably be repeating those into the microphone at the front of the room here, because you might not be picked up by that. Goes without saying, try not to use any bad language, although I've never heard any of you guys in the audience use bad language. If you have got any particular comments or questions about individuals or addresses, if I can just ask you to sort of anonymise those for us. We don't want to identify anybody that could be harmed as a result of that. And just to let you guys know, it's only the panel that are being broadcast live. You guys aren't, so you're safe. All right, so is everyone happy with that? Good stuff, I'm getting lots of nods. Okay, right, I'll run into the first part of the agenda, which really is the updates from the priorities that you as the community set us at our last meeting. That was at the Frederick Road meeting last month. You set us two, which were issues of noise and antisocial behaviour at 80 Lodge Hill Road. Now, the residents of that address, after we've worked with the local landlord and the city council, have now been evicted. They were partying from sort of 2 p.m. in the afternoon, 24 hours through to 2 p.m. the next day. The frequency of calls that we had for that address were quite staggering. Obviously that behaviour was unacceptable. That problem has now been erased. We work really closely with that landlord. He has several properties across the Bournebrook, Selly Oak area, and the next tenants that go into that address will be vetted by ourselves to make sure that they're suitable and aren't going to cause us any major dramas. The other issue that you set us last month was street drinking, antisocial behaviour and vehicle parking outside and near to the Bear and Staff pub, just up the road across the junction of Oak Tree Lane there. We've had a number of calls for service at the end of May, start of June, relating to the issues I've just mentioned. We've worked over the course of the last month with the DPS at the Bear and Staff, the local community from Frederick Road and that particular local area. And although we've reduced the calls for service and identified some of those causing antisocial behaviour, there are inquiries that are still outstanding, and there's more work that we can do there to totally eradicate the issue. So my proposal with the first task is that is now closed, and with the second one that I've just mentioned, we're going to keep that live for another month to allow us to properly finish our work and make sure that issue is resolved fully. So that's the update. I'm going to hand over to Aid Richards now, your local PCSO, who's going to talk to us a little bit about crime figures. I'll put a bit of context around that at the end of his update, and then we'll open up for questions to the floor and online. Over to you, Aid.
I've got some various figures. Just to let you know, it's a month's worth of data, so it incorporates a little bit of, well, this month and a little bit of last month, just going back to our last tasking meeting. First off, we've got burglary, and we've had 17, but to put that into context, a lot of those breaks have been insecure properties again. So it's been open windows and open doors. So we just need to re-emphasise. I know it's really nice weather and people are leaving windows and doors open, but you just got to remember that you are leaving a potential opportunity to an opportunistic offender. So if you're not in the room, it's just a reminder to everybody to keep your windows and doors locked, basically. On to our next one, we've got burglary of a building, which mainly covers our shed breaks, things like that. We've had 5. Incorporated into that, though, is a couple of our pubs have been broken into, where offenders have targeted the fruit machines. So that's incorporated into that as well. So that's why we've got a few more burglary of the buildings, because we've had offenders who are targeting our pubs. But on that, I do believe we had some people arrested for that. One of our dark handlers about a week or 2 ago got some people going equipped in the car for that. So hopefully that's sorted that problem out for the time being. Robberies. We've only had 1. For this person, it wasn't a student, it wasn't a resident. Unfortunately, it was a delivery driver who was going about his normal business. Unfortunately, he was targeted and he had his keys stolen from him, and they made away with his delivery van. We've got some various bits and pieces. So from going to cars, for theft from motor vehicles, which is usually number plates. We've had 7 of those. So there's usually number plates getting stolen from vehicles, or it has been the case of people, items being left on display. And again, I know offenders taken an opportunity and they've gone for the sat nav and stuff like that. Also, we've had 5 theft of. So we've had 5 vehicles stolen. Of note, one of those offences, the person who's had their car stolen and misplaced their keys, so that could be a contributing factor as well. We need to point out as well, a few of these offences, it's where motorbikes have been targeted, particularly 125cc motorbikes, so they're the usual learner size sort of bikes. So just need to get everybody to make sure they've got substantial locks and make sure these bikes are nicely secure, because they're easily stolen, unfortunately. Finally, well, coming to the end of it, we've also had 15 theft from shops and stores, which is your shoplifters. They've been mainly Aldi and Sainsbury's, but the majority of the time the offender's been detained at the scene by their own security. So although we've had 15 offences, the majority of them, somebody's been arrested for that offence. And finally, it's just to note that we've had 3 thefts of pedal cycles as well. So it's just a reminder for people to make sure you've actually got your bike securely locked. Ideally, where possible, if people can have a D-lock as well, which is much more sufficient in securing your bike. And that's the general sort of overview in the area at the moment. For the tasking meetings, we usually do it specific to little bits of the area, but as we're live tonight, that's the general sort of like overview of the whole of the ward.
Lovely, thanks for that update, Aid. Right, just to wrap that up for you guys, going back to burglary, what that means effectively is that we've had a 20% reduction in burglary offences compared to this time last year, year to date, which equates to 22 fewer victims than this time last year, which is good news for everybody. Aid was quite right. The main areas that have been targeted for burglary dwellings, it remains the Bournebrook area. as we know, it's highly populated by students during the academic year. A lot of students aren't around at the moment, it being the summer holidays. So really, for anybody who lives in the Bournebrook area, as there are still lots of community members around, keep your eyes peeled. If you see any suspicious behaviour, anybody walking down alleyways or the side gates that you don't recognise or look out of place, pick up the phone 999 or 101, and we'll come out and we'll deal with it. Burglary still remains a significant threat for us in this particular area. And again, as Aid was saying, it's insecure front and rear doors and windows as well. Time of the year has got a lot to answer for in terms of the weather, because it's been so nice. But even if you're moving from one room to another, make sure your back door and window's locked. You can always open it when you come back through. So the good news on that is that we've had a couple of significant arrests on the 14th of July. We had a phone call from a member of the public saying that there was a break in progress. It's got to be one of the police officers' favourite calls, a member of the public actually seeing somebody breaking into a house. Really gets the blood rushing. We went out to that and we caught a female and a male offender. They were arrested. Property was recovered from the property that had been targeted. The female's been charged and she's appearing in court on the 31st of this month. And the male, although he wasn't charged with burglary, he was charged with another Theft Act offence, and he's appearing in court on the 7th of August. So watch this space. Since those people have been arrested, we've seen a drop in the number of offences of burglary in this particular area. So that's great news. Aid was bang on with the robbery. We've only had one offence so far this month and only 2 last month. It means a 14% reduction compared with this time last year, which equates to 3 fewer victims of that particular type of crime. Good news around this as well is that we had the robbery that occurred in July. The offender was arrested a short time later, identified. He's now on Crown Court bail until September this year. He's got bail conditions to live and sleep at an address in Quinton, and he's electronically monitored to be there. And slightly off us, just over the border in Harborne Ward, but on Harborne Lane, so a stone's throw away from Selly Oak and that part of it, we had a male arrested for a knife point robbery. He was arrested, he's been charged, and he's on Crown Court bail now until October this year. So again, that's pretty good news, really. Just to wrap the vehicle crime up, that's a 16% reduction compared with this time last year. 8 fewer victims of crime across the same period, which is really good news. And we've had two really, it seems to be a bit of a theme, doesn't it, the number 2? But we've had 2 significant arrests there. So one male was stopped driving a stolen car, stolen from Wallace Road, just off the Pershore Road. So I can recognise a couple of people here from down that neck of the woods. The vehicle was stopped. It had been reported as stolen, so it was circulated. Officers arrested the male. Not only was he driving the stolen car, he was disqualified from driving. He was drunk, and he hadn't got a licence. Traffic and all that. He's now waiting to appear at court on the 5th of August on conditional bail to appear at Birmingham Magistrates Court. Aid made a passing reference there to our burglary of the buildings, where we'd had a lot of motorbikes, 125cc bikes stolen. That had been a theme, not just for Selly Oak as a ward, but for surrounding wards as well, and quite a big proportion of Birmingham South. There's a young 17-year-old man that we've been looking to trace for quite a number of weeks. He's now finally been arrested. Really good piece of police work by the officers involved. He's been arrested. He appeared in court last week, and he's been given a 12-month detention and training order. So he'll be spending some time behind bars for at least the next 6 months or so. So again, good result, but he was only one of a number of offenders committing that kind of offence. So as PCSO Richards quite rightly said, if you own a motorcycle in this area or anywhere across Birmingham South, and you keep it outside or in your back garden or on a driveway, make sure that you've got the best lock you can possibly afford on it, and any security features that you can add on there are always a bonus. The last thing I'll touch on for now is total recorded crime. Total recorded crime is absolutely everything from theft shops and stores up to serious assaults and everything in between. Okay, we saw a 10% increase in June compared to last year, and also an 8% increase so far month to date in July. Now, you've heard me talk about our serious acquisitive crime, so burglary, robbery and vehicle crime, all going down. The reason why our total recorded crime has increased is because of the burglary of the buildings, the motorbikes that you heard Aid talking about, and also those thefts, the business crime. Those are things that we've seen creep up. We are working with all our store managers and store security departments, so Sainsbury's, Aldi, Tesco's, etc., Halfords, the Battery Park, to tighten up the security. Shop layouts are really important to make sure that there aren't any easy pickings for offenders when they walk in. So that's good news generally. Antisocial behaviour I touched on to start with, which our main issue had been around the Lodge Hill Road. I'm not going to talk about that anymore at the moment. I'd like to open the meeting up now to the floor, and hopefully we've got some online questions as well. So fire away. Are you guys experiencing any issues at the moment?
People riding their bicycles on pavements and at speed, and if you live in a terraced house, it's quite dangerous when you just step out of your front garden and then someone's speeding along on a bicycle.
Whereabouts is this?
Kitchener Road.
Kitchener Road.
They come straight off the cycle route there.
Off the Ray Valley route?
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Lane.
Okay. So for the benefit of everybody watching online, the comment from the audience was that there's an issue of people riding their bikes on the pavement at speed in front of terraced houses, which presumably the doors open pretty much straight out onto the road, around the Kitchener Road estate, which is just off the Pershore Road in Selly Park, and also Dogpool Lane. It's interesting that you raise that as a point, because we've been working with a member of the local community and also the council recently around the no right turns and the one-way system around that particular area. Bridget may have a bit of an update for us on that particular issue, but in relation to the point you've just raised, we have increased our patrols. Young Aid here, that's his beat. He's part of the ward to look after. So thanks for raising that. Aid will pay that some attention.
Do you feel sorry for the young children, the very young ones? Because I think perhaps they do need to be on pavement, but some of them go quite fast.
Yeah, the comment was around young children, and perhaps that's the best place for kids to be, on their bike on the pavement. I couldn't agree more. Obviously, our legislation, we have legislation covering the use of pedal cycles on the road, but it's a balancing act, isn't it, and common sense. I think that common sense has got to prevail, and that if that's the safest place for them to be, albeit, but you're quite right to raise the point about bike speeding. So we will have a look at that, and where it's appropriate, we'll stop and speak to people and make sure they're not.
Also cars parking on, not just on the road on the corners, but parking on the footpath. We've got 4x4 that's been doing it for the last 2-3 nights now, and just down the corner of Dogpool Lane. And it's somebody. I feel sorry for people who have to have a trike, with seats, and it's very awkward because they can't get past.
Okay, the last comment was around cars parking on footpaths around Dogpool Lane, and would I be right to say probably around Kitchener Road as well?
That's, 2 or 3 places around.
Yeah,
this one's not been there long. It's one of the 4x4s.
Have you got a registration number?
I get it.
Would you?
She's gone out, and I bet you any money she's parked it there again tonight.
Would you be able to phone that through to us, or give it to Aid when he pops by next?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you very much. That's been a bit of an issue, and quite a long-term problem, I'd suggest, in that area, probably because of the concentration of houses, and everyone's got a couple of cars per household these days. It's something that remains part of our daily business, and certainly Aid and PC Haley Sherry, who have got responsibility for that beat and that part of Selly Park, will continue to pay that some attention. But we need your help. Let us know the registration numbers, and we can deal with them even when they're not there, because we can find out who the registered keeper is, and then we can pay them a visit and give them some advice. Thank you very much.
You're probably aware of the ongoing problems in Wallace Road and the car parking. But at the forum meeting last week, resident was very concerned about people parking at the top of the road
Mm.
and making it almost impossible if there was an emergency vehicle that needed to get down.
There was a lot of worry about that at the Selly Park South Forum. There were concerns around the Hobson Road, Kitchener Road emerge, and the parking that you were talking about blocking the view, and a couple of really close or really near misses I think have been witnessed by people. But also up, as you say, up at the top of Wallace, there are a number of disability spaces with problem parking.
In the legal disabled bays, there are a lot of bays that are now at the end of their time, but there are one or two in the area that are legal, and people are parking illegally in those bays, and particularly from the corner cafe.
So that's one I need to take up, where I am taking back to Amy and our highways engineers. There's a concern, there's quite a few disabled bays around there where the residents have either moved on or passed on, and they're out of use. So we need to liaise with the highways engineers and make sure we've got only the right ones there. But obviously, it's for these guys to ensure the right ones are monitored.
Can I ask you another question? Because the Dogport Lane is going to be very busy now. This morning I came up from the doctor's and I noticed there was some lights there, but they've gone. So, they've gone. They were there this morning and they were there at 12:30, but they're not there now.
Are these, the comment was around lights at Dogpool Lane. Are these street lights or traffic lights you're referring to?
Traffic lights.
Traffic lights, okay. At which junction?
The Dogport Lane.
The Dogpool at Pershore?
The Pershore Road and going across. Because you see, Carlton Road being closed, it makes all the traffic coming down our way. The road's getting blocked. Get across the road because they're either using Pershore Road or our road.
Yeah, so you've got increased traffic flow then.
But they were there this morning. I came back from the doctor's about 20 to 9, and they were there on the back of the lorry. And then they were by the side, at 12:30, they were just the other side of the bus shelter. But they're gone now.
Any knowledge?
I don't know about that, but I'll ask the question.
Yeah, likewise.
It was mentioned, wasn't it, about lights?
Yeah, the question was asked. I'm not quite sure why they appeared and disappeared, but I can ask.
So the question really is, where have the lights at Dogpool Lane gone? Okay, no problems. Well, Bridget's going to take that away and find out for you, so we'll let you know. Thank you. We'll take an online question now. Vicky.
Yes, Gaz Lloyd said on Facebook he wanted to know how do businesses go about partnering with the police?
That's a really good question. Thank you, Gaz Lloyd. It really depends. We've got a really strong partnership working ethic across Selly Oak Ward. I think that would be really fair to say. There's some familiar faces in the audience. I was at a meeting this afternoon with Barry Toon just across there, who runs the charity responsible for the gating in and around Bournebrook. As a result of our partnership working with the university, Bournebrook Community Safety Partnership, City Council, who attend that meeting as well, we've set up a landlords and lettings agency meeting, which, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, is that bi-monthly?
Yeah.
So it's a bi-monthly meeting where we sit down with our landlords and letting agents and we discuss current issues, how we can make our students and those renting houses in this community safer and less likely to be victims of crime. As I mentioned earlier on, we're working with some of our businesses that are suffering from repeat thefts. So I'm talking about Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Aldi, which are all in half a mile radius of each other along the Bristol Road. We've also got the Battery Park and a number of premises on there, such as Halfords, that have suffered recently. We've got a new home base that's about to open. We work with all of those. The way we split the ward up, it's split into 4 beats. So you have Selly Oak West, Bournebrook, and then north and south, Selly Park. It's very similar to the way the council split their boundaries of Selly Oak as a ward as well. And I have a PC and PCSO, and they are responsible and tasked with going in and knowing who their business owners are, speaking to the security regularly, and as I said, making sure that everyone's working together to make crime less likely to happen. So there's lots of ways in which we work with our partners.
And can I just add, from a partnership team perspective, we also have a community contact database where we include local businesses on our email system and keep them up to date on anything relevant to their local area. So in order to get involved with that, you can contact your local policing team, Selly Oak team, and ask them how to register for that community contact database.
Thank you, Vicky. The other thing I'd like to add is that for the charity that I mentioned earlier, the Bournebrook Community Safety Partnership, that's responsible for running the nearly 300 gates that keep Bournebrook and the back-to-back terrace houses as safe as possible from the threat of burglary. We've worked with local businesses, local community during the course of the past 9 months, and we've raised around £8,000, if I'm right in saying, which is going to go a huge way to making sure that existing gates are maintained, and we have a number of gaps where new gates are going in all the time to make the area even safer. So it's all good stuff at the moment. Yes?
And there seems to be an increase of graffiti in Selly Park. It's on various buildings, the shutters along Pershore Road, various shops and buildings, and the former Kidderminster Park.
It's all coloured.
A dog form, and that's quite bold and artistic, but it's graffiti. And there's none on this the bridge side, but there's been graffiti the far side, the river side of the bridge.
Okay. So the last comment was around an increase in graffiti seen around Selly Park. I'm really glad that you've raised that point. We have a system in the West Midlands Police where I can track known offenders or anybody that we've got a particular interest in. When I came into work and paraded for duty earlier on, I had an email on my tracking system to say that there's a young lad who's had an offence of exactly what you're saying, criminal damage, where he caused graffiti at a location in Selly Park. Now, that lad is responsible for that. There's an investigation officer from the Selly Oak investigation team that's currently putting together all of those offences of graffiti that have been reported, and there's quite a few, and they will be put to this young lad at some point in the very near future when he reports back to the police station. So fingers crossed, touch wood, we know who's done the majority of that, and we should see that stopping now.
I've never seen these tags that are up there now. I haven't seen them for ages. The last time I've seen them was going back about 3 or 4 years, and somebody got done for that. Yeah,
this particular lad, he is known to us, but yeah, it's in hand and being looked at the moment. I suppose the next thing really is the clean-up of that, and I'm not sure whether it's private dwellings that you're talking about. Right. Okay. So the next thing is to get those cleared up, which again will be a bit of a partner effort, won't it? I think.
Yeah, I've got 3. Two for the police and 1 for the bridge. Is there any news on the incident on Aldi car park about a week or so ago? There was quite a fight on there, whether anybody was arrested for it. The other one is there's perhaps a growing issue around the area for minicab ranking. When the students start coming back, there's going to be problems in competing space, I think, in terms of whether there'll be enough space for the minicabs to rank up as they are around in little spaces that they've managed to tuck themselves into. But those spaces won't be there when the student cars come back. And the other one is there's some people have been complaining about the dingle access onto the canal. It seems to be blocked up with a temporary barrier, and it's making it quite difficult for people who want to use the canal towpath. I know there's work going on the towpath at the moment, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of notice about alternative access. So unless you have to know that you can walk a bit further down to the new housing development and get in through there, how are you supposed to get off the canal towpath?
And it's a bit of an alleyway, that bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it the top or the bottom?
It's at the bottom.
By the canal.
There's a temporary
Okay.
barrier in there. I assume it's for that, but they don't seem to have signed it up or said anything about how you get off or how long it's going to be blocked off or what.
I'll certainly ask the question.
Okay, I'll take the Aldi car park fight first. Having been away from work for the last couple of weeks, I don't know anything about that, I'll be totally honest, so I'm going to open this one out to my PCSOs.
4 got arrested for a fray on that one. So there was a bit of a fight, but 4 people were arrested. So yeah, defenders arrested at the scene for that one. All I know is that I can definitely tell you 4 were arrested for a fray.
We'll find out and put a tweet out with exactly what the result and outcome of that was. That'll be interesting to find out. As for taxi cabs, it's we met with our stakeholders at the what we call the Student Serious Exclusive Crime meeting earlier on today. I made reference to that a short time ago around minicab ranking, the competing space, and how we're going to manage that in the new academic year. There is certainly talk, I think, within council walls that the main high street area of Selly Oak at some point in the future will be pedestrianised, which personally I think is a good idea with the nearly 27,000 university students that we've got attending the university, and there's at least 14,000 of those that live in the Bournebrook area. So it's a huge strain on that particular area with the nightlife down there as well. We will manage it as we pretty much have been over the course of the last 3 months. What we've done is that we've recognised that there is an issue with private hire cabs in Selly Oak, and that competing space and competing demand and putting up outside licensed premises, etc. We've run 2 multi-agency operations, both in the centre of Selly Oak, specifically targeting private hire drivers. Okay, primarily to keep the roads safe. Okay, we've had VOSA, so our vehicle operating guys with us. We've had our police officer who's seconded to the council, who's our private hire and black cab liaison officer, traffic officers down in Selly Oak working with the local neighbourhood team. We've pulled over in excess of 130 private hires in the course of the last 3 months, where the vehicles have been examined for roadworthiness, driver licences have been checked, insurance has been checked. We've made sure that the black cabs and private hires have got the adequate safety devices on board, such as a first aid kit and a fire extinguisher. And we've also caught 6 of those 130 plus for what we term as touting or plying for trade. So if you're a private hire taxi driver, you've heard the phrase "be booked, be insured," I'm sure, on the side of a lot of private hire taxis. Unless you pre-book that, private hire drivers aren't allowed to pick you up on the side of the road. They commit an offence. Likewise, they're not allowed to stop and ask, do you want a ride, do you want a taxi? So we have caught 6 drivers for doing that and seized their vehicles, because if they do that, you are not insured. The driver is no longer insured to be on the road, therefore they're driving without any insurance. So we've seized 6 of those vehicles. I think that sent out a really strong message to the private hire fraternity who operate and work in this area, and it is something that we will continue to do. At the start of the academic year, when Selly Oak is a flurry of activity, we will be doing more of those operations, and they will be a regular theme of our nighttime patrols around Selly Oak. We also discussed the issue of actually setting up some temporary taxi ranks, didn't we, in and around Selly Oak. I'm not going to go into detail on that now. That's not for tonight. But there are lots of ideas being bounced around at the moment in relation to taxis, black cabs, private hires, and what's the best way to keep everybody happy. But for now, we will continue with our enforcement and making sure that the public are safe when they're getting a black cab or private hire taxi.
Can I ask Abe something? We've had quite a bit of problems with a group from up the estate. The lads coming up down the road screaming and shouting and that. And it's not been early, it's been late, quite late. I'm wondering if they're going to the young place.
We'll have a look. We'll liaise with the Bourneville team as well, because I might know who they are, because we have had issues in the past with a group from that particular area who Bourneville know really well. So I'll liaise with Bourneville as well, see if they can give us some ideas, and we'll head down to the area round by the takeaway, me and Greg, and we'll have a look around and see if anybody's out and about causing trouble.
Nice weather, they can hang around.
Yeah, okay.
Two related issues came up at our forum meeting, and they actually, they're antisocial, but also it's perhaps environment, City of Birmingham as well, dumping around various corners, as well as dumping in front gardens, and the whole area looks a disgrace. Now, to me, it's antisocial, but I think it's perhaps police and city as well, something we perhaps look at jointly, because someone at our meeting did even offer to pay for a camera to catch whoever's dumping at the top of Kitchener Road, because he spent thousands of pounds on a house there, and he's looking directly onto a daily pile of rubbish at the top of Kitchener Road.
So I can elaborate on that slightly. So as Jean says, we had complaints from a guy who lives at the top of Kitchener about the dumping there. Pershore Road as well, where we know that's a regular dumping spot. There was a particular complaint about an ice cream driver who likes to dump his trade waste every Monday, don't know what time, on Manila Road.
Round about 6:57.
Your memory is better than mine. But he apparently pulls up every Monday and offloads his trade waste.
That's Manila Road, Monday evenings, 6:30 till 7.
6:30.
Okay, have we got a registration or any, you know?
Did she go everyone, didn't she?
She was going to, and then she left the meeting before I had a chance to catch her. I have the name of the firm, though. I don't know if you want my name afterwards.
Yeah, we can speak about that afterwards. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
What sort of trade waste do you get off an ice cream? Is it sort of like ice
So
cream?
it's
Gone off ice cream cones.
the cartons and all that sort of thing. They just
It's totally unacceptable, isn't it? It just makes the whole look of the area and the feel of the area come down. I'd like to talk to you afterwards about the opportunity of whoever the person was who wants to pay for a camera. I will snap their right arm off if that's possible.
Well, I think actually he was saying he would pay for the tracing fee, wasn't it, Bridget? Tracing fee for property owners who are just throwing the rubbish in the gardens.
He was very keen to do that.
Fee or something, and said
Well, it sounds like we can work with the local community down there to try and resolve that. It sounds like there's a couple of quite easy leads there, particularly around this ice cream van.
It's a shame because Pershore Road, it's a main thoroughfare. You've got people that on coaches going, into town to the station there, and it must look awesome. And yet it used to be so beautiful.
Well, first impressions and impressions as you go along are really important, aren't they? Because Birmingham is a great city, and particularly Selly Oak. It's a great place to live, work, play, etc. But things like that not acceptable. So we will try and sort that.
It has to be beautiful. It really has.
Okay, we'll do our best with the council and you guys to sort that out.
Yeah.
I've got a couple if other people haven't. But you've got one online?
Yeah, another online one from Carl on Twitter. What is going to be done about all the skips in the Bournebrook area in Selly Oak?
Skips in the Bournebrook area, right? Okay. I'm glad that question's been asked as well, because we met with the council as part of our stakeholder meeting for the student series Quiz to Crime meeting earlier on. We held jointly with the council and all our partners on the 3rd of July. a multi-agency all-out day. Okay, we had I think 50 or 60, 50 I'm being told, police, council staff, partner agencies, out and about, who split into multi-agency teams and did a walk around of the whole of Bournebrook and surrounding areas. We have, along with the council, identified 134 skips that have been placed on the road by builders around, particularly the Bournebrook area and Selly Park as well, I have to say, that have not been licensed to be on the road. They are now all been fined £135 to be given a retrospective licence. So not only is there a good bit of income there, but there's a strong message being sent out to skip companies and also builders using skips that they can't get away with not having a licence. Those all-out days are something that are going to be a theme as we move forward into the academic year as well. The amount of building work and construction that's going on around Selly Oak and Selly Park at the moment is phenomenal. So I'm sure the skip issue will be there for a little while, but we will keep on top of it with our partners from the council, and do our very best to sort that. And there's quite a lot of legislation surrounding skips that we can use. So. Yeah, but that's good news. 134 retrospective licences, which is far more expensive than applying for a licence in the first instance.
That's £18,000. Well, £18,090 in total.
There you go. Happy days.
Paid for all that.
Paid for itself.
Allied to that, I've had a couple of landlords contact me and say that they're concerned about scrap metal dealers in there, particularly around the Alton Road area. At least one of them was trying doors of empty houses to see if there's any scrap metal around. There's no identification or registration, I'm afraid, and it does seem to be an issue that is down there.
Yeah, I think that really links in with the last point around, the amount of building that's going on in Selly Oak. So the point that was raised was around, particularly Alton Road area, scrap metal dealers looking at houses that are empty at the moment. Wherever you've got building work, you're going to find scrap metal dealers going around trying to pick up legally or otherwise anything that they can get their hands on. And whilst they do play a really important part when they do things legally in recycling scrap metal, etc., there are those that will go out unlicensed and pick up anything that isn't nailed to the floor, basically, I think is the right phrase. We have regular what we call metal theft weeks, days of action. We've just come to the end of one of those where, and it's almost part of business as usual, I've got to say, is that we go and visit our local scrap dealers, and it's supposed to be all cashless transactions now. So we will go in and we will have a look round. We get invited in a lot of the time. We make sure that none of the property in there looks out of place. It's not marked up with any of our products that we've bought in from external companies over the years where we have products marked. Likewise with our telecommunications cables, rail cables, etc. And we make sure that none of those have gone in because they will be stolen ultimately. So yeah, we've seen some real reductions since that change in legislation, cashless transactions, and also the pressure that we put on our local scrap dealers. As ever, that will remain business as usual, and any scrap dealers that are mooching around will actively try and stop and make sure that they've got the relevant documentation, etc.
Can I just add a quick point that it's probably about 4 weeks ago. What I presume was scrap dealers. They repeatedly thumped on my back door and my front door, and when I mean thumped, it was a bit like, no disrespect to the police, but the thumping was like, like a police raid. I mean, not that I've been involved in one, but that's kind of what I would imagine. It was literally, I thought my door was going to give way. I mean, I'm not a young fella, but even if I was, it's frightening for whoever it is. It's bad enough having people call on your house uninvited, But when you get somebody literally thumping on the door as though they've got some sort of right, you know, that you don't count as a person, it's very intimidating. They were in an unmarked van. It was a fairly new, well, in fact, I'd go so far as to say it was a new van. It was, you know, perhaps only months old, but no markings on it as white. I assume they were scrap dealers because I have got a rather elderly car in my driveway. And as you pointed out, Sergeant, the legislation surrounding scrap dealers has been improved tremendously so. And I thought that kind of there hasn't been very many scrap dealers around recently, so you know the situation has improved. But that particular day, it was quite frightening. That's recently.
Did you report that to us? Did you phone us at the time?
I think I might have mentioned it to
PCSO
Richards.
Yeah, he mentioned it to me on a phone call after the event.
But the PCSO said that unless I'd got a registration number, there was perhaps very little that could be done.
Yeah, I think I totally empathise with you. It's clearly not a nice situation to be in at all. I think all I would say is in the future, if you do have anything like that occur again, which if you have an elderly car on your drive, is it unused?
Yeah, it's
right.
got
Okay.
a sawn on it.
Great. Okay. That was a theme. In fact, one particular offender spent 12 months in prison a couple of years ago for lifting well over 60 cars off people's drives just on the back of a low loader. You know, just rocking up to houses in a high vis jacket and putting the car onto the back of the truck and driving off and weighing it in for scrap. It's quite lucrative. However, what I would say is give us a call. That's what we're here for. And unless we know about it at the time, in retrospect, it's really, really difficult because we might have had officers only around the corner who would have been able to stop the van. So, yeah, just if you can give us a call, that'd be.
Yeah, they were clearly going around the area looking for scrap because one of the fellas was kind of, when they reversed back down my cul-de-sac, they were actually, one of them was sort of, for want of a good description, he was sort of leaning out the van like a hyena. Yeah, so would that be a 101 or a 999 call?
Well, if they're thumping on your door, I'd phone 999.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Online question.
This question is from Facebook. Sandra Bond wants to know that why do you just get a crime number when you phone about criminal damage?
Again, really good question. It all depends on the circumstances of the offence. So without knowing, Sandra, a little bit more detail about your case, if you phone up 101 and report a crime to us, now criminal damage, it's seen as quite a minor crime if the value of the criminal damage is quite low. However, it can have a really big impact on people's quality of life and the impact of the crime. Sometimes it's really difficult to measure. You would have been given a crime number, but if there were no witnesses to the offence, if you tell us that if there's no CCTV and no viable leads, then it's very unlikely that you'll get an officer allocated to that unless it's part of a series of criminal damage offences in that particular area. We have to proportionately respond to all crimes and all calls for service, and we're in the midst of quite an austere time at the moment, and we have to make really difficult decisions every day about what we will and won't respond to. And it, again, without knowing the details of the case, if it's a minor criminal damage and there are no viable leads, unfortunately, in that instance, it's very unlikely that an officer would go out. But if there's any more information that you'd like to know, get in touch with us on Facebook again, and I can get an officer to give you a call back and maybe give you an update about what's happening in that particular area and with that particular crime.
The city one, but also because you're sort of concerned about people's safety. The corner of Kitchener Road and Cecil Road, the double white lines have just completely worn away. I think it's because the surface has worn away too. But I think this must perhaps have happened in lot of areas. Some of the road markings are not visible. People just then go straight around the corner without stopping. Quite dangerous.
Yeah. So the comment was around double white lines. Are these the giveaway markings at the junction of Kitchener Road at Cecil Road in Selly Park, and them not being visible? I don't know whether your highways team are.
I'm currently writing an email to the highways team to make them aware of that.
Yes, but I think we need all our markings checked in our area. But I think the roads have got to be in such a state that they've been patched, and this is the problem. They've patched and we're losing the signage.
I know I don't think this is a problem that's just isolated to Selly Park or Selly Oak. I know nationally, and particularly in Worcestershire, the highways team there are going and re-skimming road surfaces and redoing the markings. I'm not sure, Bridget, whether there's anything similar planned around Birmingham.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, obviously
markings have all been put up.
Yes, they have.
Where we resurface roads, obviously we redo the markings at the same time.
Because of the traffic coming up now.
So all the roads in Birmingham are on a rotation for being resurfaced, or street lamps being done, or the pavements and so on, as per the AMI contract. And of course we're doing it on a worst first basis. Because that's the only way you can afford to do it, essentially. What makes sense. So they'll be on the rota somewhere. It's just a question as to where, when. But I've sent an email to Sajid to ask him.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions from the audience?
As I say, I've got a couple I can raise from people who have raised them at other neighbourhood forums. Have a local resident who had his car stolen in Sainsbury's car park last week. Wondering if there's been a spate of those or if it's an isolated incident. I know you did mention vehicle crime earlier.
I think I know what car this is, actually, having reviewed all of our vehicle crime. Okay, no, I think that vehicle is still outstanding as stolen. It was a couple of days ago when I was reviewing the crime anyway. No, it's, I would describe that as a one-off across Selly Oak. That's not a usual kind of crime that we're seeing. Is the short answer. Okay. That's horrible for the person that lost his car, but reassuring, I suppose it's not a trend. Yeah. There's also questions from the neighbourhood watchers and the residents' forums have been ongoing for a long time about Gibbons Road, Lodge Hill Road and Reservoir Road around the traffic there. And there were questions asked at the last meeting I was at about the potential of doing a community speed watch. Yeah, absolutely. It's something that's, as I mentioned earlier on, Selly Oak has been. I've split my ward into 4 particular beats. The officers for that particular area are PC Mark Lamb and PCSO Wayne Lawrence, who is a new PCSO to the team, not new to the West Midlands Police. He's actually been part of the organisation for about 7 or 8 years now. A really, really enthusiastic PCSO who is making a difference already to that particular area. It's on their agenda to organise a community speed watch along with some speed enforcement. It has been an issue on those 3 roads that you've mentioned
since
for a while. Yeah. Okay. Leave that with us and we'll get a date set sooner rather than later. Fantastic. Online question, go ahead.
This one is from Haley Sherry on Twitter. She wants to know what is being done about the illegal building work extensions in Bournemouth.
Okay. Thank you, Haley, for your question. I think, having seen some of your tweets, Bridget, over the last couple of days, I might leave this one to you. Okay, lots. So the Bournebrook area, as you well know, has lost student accommodation in it. Recently we've seen an increase in the number of people putting illegal extensions, dormer windows, droppings of floors, partitions of rooms all over Bournebrook. We've currently got 157 properties, I believe, that we're looking at bits of enforcement action on.
all across the ward. These tend to be people who have commenced building work, often illegally, without planning permission, and very dubious building standards. And they've broken various regulations across the piece, which we're working on getting enforcement action taken on. Problem with planning law, it takes a really long time, unfortunately, to get a result. We're pressing ahead with it and trying to work them through the system, but it is going to take a while for someone to go through. Each time one of them comes up at planning committee, we're challenging it there. And last week we got a good result where we got one of the, a particularly bad one turned down, which we're really happy with. Long term, we've got a thing coming in called an Article 4 direction across the wider Selly Oak area, rather. Unfortunately, it doesn't cover Bournebrook. What it means is that from now on, any landlord who wants to convert a regular house into a house with 3 or more people who don't live together will have to apply for planning permission. At the moment, that number's much, much higher, so it's going to make it much harder for people to get away with illegal extensions. It won't cover Bournebrook because there's so many properties already converted in Bournebrook, which is a shame. But what we're working on locally is that enforcement action for those that are problems and getting those sorted. So there is a lot going on. If you've got any particular properties you're worried about, tweet me or email me.
If we are dealing with the sort of planning issues, that I didn't realise we'd be dealing with this at a tasking meeting, but I'll throw my penny's worth in. When I went out on the all-out day, the all-out action day, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, something that I'd vaguely heard of, but it came up time and time again with the team of people that I went round with. A lot of the builders that we spoke to, they were quite gleeful at the fact that now they do not have to go to the council's building regulation inspectors, which is, I believe, a company called Civico, which is probably a wholly owned subsidiary of Birmingham City Council, I would guess. They can now go to, for want of a better word of describing this, they can now go to third-party building regs officers. Now, when we spoke to these builders, they seemed to imply that they said that, hey, we don't come to you guys, because we had a building regs guy on our team that I was with. And they said, well, we don't come to you guys anymore because you're too tough on us and we can't get the work that we're doing approved. So we've dropped all that and we go to somebody who we know, we go to a private building regs officer, contractor or whatever. Now that kind of makes me wonder what's going on. I mean, how rigid is the legislation which actually still protects us as a community or even as a country in terms of building regulation inspections? In other words, what I'm saying is how thorough are they and how, if you like, professionally, ethically are they carried out? You know, is work that is substandard being waved through because it's no longer, if you like, a local government stroke central government type regime?
Okay.
I can certainly. It's. I'm not going to pretend to know the ins and outs of planning law. I'm not a builder, certainly, but what I can tell you, you're a resident of Bournebrook. You've been on that all-out action day yourself. We work really, really closely with the Guild of Students at the university here. The Guild of Students employ, I think is the right word, current students as community wardens. Those community wardens have responsibilities both on the campus itself and also off campus, as we would term it. Now, the off campus stuff is really, really important. What we're going to be doing from the start of this academic year is not just monthly or bi-weekly all-out days with these wardens. We're going to be doing weekly patrols. So you'll have the local neighbourhood team and the community wardens from the university walking down every single road in Bournebrook, from Healy Road down to Bournebrook Road, from the Bristol up to Rattlebarn Road, making sure that the alleyways are safe and secure, making sure that people's front doors are closed, engaging with all the residents in that area and passing crime prevention advice and other information that's relevant to the area on. But a big part of that, and you know, the couple of the people in the room who have been part of these all-out days will tell you, is that if we see any student houses that are clearly a hazard because of the state that the building's in, or there's work ongoing that could potentially cause somebody a hazard, we report that straight back to the hazard and noise section of Birmingham City Council. They've got a dedicated team who go round looking at those particular issues. They've then got powers to go and inspect those properties where there are genuine concerns, and then action plans can be put in place with the owners of that property to rectify you know, whatever is substandard or whatever needs to be improved. So that's something that we're going to be increasing the frequency of those, which should lead to more buildings being looked at more regularly, which over time, it's not going to happen overnight, but it means that we'll be reporting more to the council, which should mean that more get looked at, reported, visited, etc.
I can also tell you on the deregulation of planning enforcers and building survey, can't remember the exact words, people that check the building work. I know that's on Steve McCabe, the MP's radar, because it's a national issue, the deregulation. And I know it's on his radar and something that he's starting to ask questions about at his level.
Not wishing to brag, but I will do. I think Steve picked that up because I actually went to his advice desk about 2 weeks ago, and I had a really good go at him over it. So that's where Steve probably
It's definitely registered with him then. He was talking about it last Friday.
Yeah, I think until I lobbied him on it, he was unaware that it was going on. Just one final thing to wind this little point up. When I was on the all-out day, we spoke to one set of builders, and they were actually, as you were saying, Sergeant, that there is substandard work going on. So this was quite joyful to hear this. A builder was on site, we had a word with him, and he said, I'm actually taking apart a dormer bedroom window, you know, the little structure that forms the dormer. He said, I'm taking all that apart, scrapping it, and he said, I'm rebuilding it because the person who now owns the property, the previous person who owned it or whatever, had a shoddy building company do it. So it was all below spec. It was poorly insulated, the timbers and that were all undersized, and so this guy was redoing it. So there's a bit of positive news that we found out when we went round on the all-out day.
Good news, thanks for that update, good to hear. Are there any more online questions, Vicky? Okay. If there's nothing else from you guys, and thanks for your input, it's really, really appreciated. Bridget, are there any other points that you'd like to raise or talk about?
I don't think so, no.
Great. We're obviously going to keep the bear and staff and the antisocial behaviour around that particular area as a priority. Now's your opportunity. You've raised lots and lots of issues for us. Is there any other one single issue that you as the community would like to task us with to concentrate and focus on across the course of the next month? Okay. Are there any other? Go ahead.
Well, you're probably doing this anyway, so you'll probably say, yeah, well, we're doing that. It's just kind of a reminder in that respect. Each year when the students go home, I notice, because I walk around the area, and I've got a pretty good sort of gut feeling of sort of who belongs in the area, so to speak, perhaps like you guys as well. And the area seems to be sort of infiltrated, you know, like the saying is, nature abhors a vacuum. So all the students have gone, and then you seem to get these sort of characters that come into the area, and they're walking around, and they look quite seedy. So what I'm saying is that you know, please be on your guard and police the area quite thoroughly, despite the fact that there's fewer population here. So of course, you'd think your job would be somewhat easier with fewer people here, but I'm saying you do need to be every bit as vigilant, in fact perhaps more so, because you do get these characters that seem to come into the area when the students go, and it can make it feel quite unsafe.
I think that's a really fair point. And as you heard me sort of talk at the start of the meeting, our emerging trend is around burglaries. You heard me talk about that really good result where we had a couple, a male and a female, arrested, who are now going to appear before court next month. I think you're absolutely right. The threat of burglary and crime in the Bournebrook area in particular, and as the student population grows out into Selly Park, it's always a threat. And it will always remain one of our priorities. So all I would say is, and a plea to yourselves that are here and any member of the community that's watching online, if you see anything suspicious at all or witness any suspicious behaviour, give us a call. We only know about it if you phone us or contact us and let us know. The community are the eyes and ears of any police force anywhere in the world. So, we heavily rely on you guys. So.
I'm going to say the same goes for us as councillors. We can't be omnipresent on every street all the time, so the quicker you let us know about some problems, the sooner we can get them sorted out for you.
I think we have one more online question potentially.
Well, yeah, it can relate to this. One of our local neighbourhood watch organisations wanted to find out, and this can relate to this question, how are the neighbourhood watch doing in Selly Oak, and are there any watches online, Twitter, that you know of that are set up and established that could also help people in reporting the crime and talking about.
Okay, yeah, Neighbourhood Watch generally across Selly Oak as a ward is in a pretty healthy position. I think we have lots of representatives tonight from forums that are, that are involved in talking about crime. Neighbourhood Watch around Bournebrook, particularly around Selly Park tonight. We've got neighbourhood watch schemes running in the west part of Selly Oak as well, which is towards the Wheatley Castle side of the ward. I'm glad that that's been raised actually, because it's something that we're looking at. Is actually setting up a dedicated neighbourhood watch scheme for Bournebrook, this area, and it links straight in with the point that you just raised around the threat never goes away really. So it's top of our agenda. As for online, I'm not sure. I'd have to go and check.
We've got two. We've got Selly Park Forum, and we've got Woolworths Lane Neighbourhood Watch also online.
There you go. I know the Selly Park Forum also has a very, very good website to go on. If you Google Selly Park Forum, it's really comprehensive and it covers lots of issues from the history of the area to the flood action group, which was relevant a few days ago.
Yeah, again, picking up on the neighbourhood watch thing, when I moved to the area about 26 years ago, the lady just opposite me on the new development I live on was actually the neighbourhood watch coordinator. She left a good many years ago, and to my knowledge, I don't know how big an area a watch covers, but I know she was, from what I could understand, the sort of Healy Road area, because I think, again, I might be speaking wrongly here, but I think they are usually sort of a fairly small area so that the coordinator can kind of get to know the people that they coordinate for. Well, she was certainly the one for the Healy Road area. I say, unfortunately, she left a good many years ago, and I don't think anyone took up the mantle and became the coordinator for that neck of the woods in Bournebrook.
I can give you the Twitter handle for Warwards Lane Neighbourhood Watch, which is Warwards Lane B29 or warwardsnhw.co.uk. They have their website.
Brilliant, thanks, Bridget.
We could do with more volunteers, because I think Sally is on a bit of a limb from Holly Place. She's a neighbourhood watch.
Yeah,
she works hard, but we do need more volunteers all across Selly Park.
Yeah, I think both really, really valid points. What I'd like to see are neighbourhood watch forums where you have permanent members of the community who live in that area, joined by any businesses, or that are also located in that same vicinity, and students as well. You know, we have a lot of students that are here for 4 or 5 years at a time, and they're just as part of the community when they're here for 9-10 months of the year as anybody else. And I think it's really important that we try and just create a bit more of a cohesive environment for Neighbourhood Watch to grow in that respect. So certainly we're going to start in Bournebrook because that's our priority area. You know, as certainly as we enter the new academic year, and we'll try and grow it from there. So it's definitely on the agenda to be improved and strengthened.
There's a house in Selly Park that's now a student cooperative. I don't know whether you're aware of it. It's on Pershore Road, more or less opposite Wallace Road. It's quite a nice double-fronted house, and we're going to invite them to our next forum. But it's very interesting what they've actually set up. So we're interested. 2 of them came to our forum meeting, so that was interesting that they came to our meeting. So we're going to watch that space.
Brilliant. Well, we'd love to, you know, we'd love to speak to.
And there are 6. Bridget might just back me up on this. About 6 in the country.
Yes, they're a small but growing number. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. One of the reasons why we've decided to launch into monthly regular live tasking meetings is to attract a bigger audience. The meetings are always 7 p.m. of an evening, and we appreciate that for, you know, families with young kids, people just getting home from work with an ever more, you know, flexible working ethic that we have in this country now, and also to try and reach students and more young people. That's one of the reasons why we've gone online now. So certainly as we enter that period in September of Freshers Week and beyond, we hope to get more interaction and get more people involved in our ward tasking meetings. That's really, really important.
Apologies for next month, I'm on holiday.
Yeah. Enjoy your holiday. You'll be missed. Okay, are there any more points from the floor? I think we've settled on graffiti. We'll make sure that we'll work with our investigation team officer to make sure that you know, everything's done that can be to pull together all the evidence for those. Right. Okay. We'll also contact our street clean officer for Selly Oak, and we met with him earlier anyway. But we speak to him most days, so we'll see what we can do about cleaning up any graffiti that's out there in the public. Okay, thanks very much. I think I'm going to bring the meeting to a close now, just by saying that we have an upcoming event which is to take place on the 9th of August. It's called and has been advertised as the Fake Festival, which you might think, oh, what's all that about? That sounds a bit dodgy. It's not. It's quite a legitimate organisation, and they have tribute bands and acts playing. They're coming to Selly Oak Park on the 9th. In the afternoon. I think they're expecting around about 1,500 people potentially. For any of you that have got concerns about that, they put on an event at Cofton Park this time last year where they had upwards of 4,000 people, I believe, and didn't have any issues around the security. They come in with a full security team, and your local neighbourhood team will be on duty as well to mop up any particular issues. And certainly the issue was raised earlier on about increase in traffic, obviously Gibbons Lane being one of those key roads where we were talking about earlier. So we will have a presence in the area and make sure that passes off without incident.
Go along.
Yeah, well, yeah, it sounds like it's going to be quite good actually. Right, our next meeting then is planned for Tuesday the 19th of August, 7 p.m. That's going to be at the Christian Life Centre on Frederick Road, which is sort of the west side of Selly Oak. So for those of you who'd like to come, please do so. And we plan, so long as we get the technology working and Wi-Fi in place, to be streaming that one live as well. So there we go. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you to our online audience. Thank you for everyone that's come tonight. Vicky, thank you for facilitating. Bridget, thanks for your knowledge on all things Birmingham City Council. That's it for tonight. Thanks very much.